All right. Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to another Ready to Love conversation. I'm your host, Crystal Jordan, and we are just getting started a few minutes late. Natasha is going to be joining me shortly. I just got off the phone with her. And so you guys hang tight. She's going to be jumping on in 2 minutes. And I just want to lay some ground rules here. We've been having these conversations about Ready to Love, and everyone has come in and shared their perspective. We know that we had Tony on a few days ago. We had Marcia on, and a lot of people really enjoyed those conversations. I want to be clear. I don't have we don't have a dog in the fight. We're just here listening. I did want to have Natasha on, along with some of the other cast members. We still have a few more to bring on the show, but I really wanted to have Natasha on because I felt really bad about how she was outed on the show. And the reason I felt bad about that is because you guys know we've been having these conversations, these Ready to Love conversations, with cast for the last 3 years, right? And there is always so much going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, that we're not told about. So many people are getting busy. So many people are sliding over into each other's, DMs and dealing with each other off camera, and nobody puts it out there, right? So the fact that Natasha was outed, I guess that's part of the game that you play when you deal with people that you just met. But I just think it was unfortunate and it was unfair the way it was done, especially since she wasn't even on the show at that time. So I wanted to give her a chance to come on and talk. I had a conversation with her, and she also wants to share about her journey freezing her eggs. And I thought this was good because it's a part of a bigger conversation. People sign up for Ready to Love. A lot of people are playing games, right? A lot of people are on here trying to get fame, but I do believe that there are some people that come on the show, men and women, that truly want to find love. Usually Ready to Love caters to an audience of people that are a little bit older, right? And so a lot of times when women have put their career first and have been, being successful in other areas of their life, and they are single, that biological clock ticking is something that many career women deal with. And a lot of them, I have friends that that have been very successful in business, but when it comes to being in their late 30s, 40s, and then mid 40s, and up, they realize they don't have children and they want to. And so I think a lot of times we enjoy the entertaining aspect of Ready to Love, but we don't always, keep in mind. This piece of hair is just irritating me. These faux locks are a little different, but that one piece is driving me nuts. But we have to realize that a lot of these people they really want a chance at love. This is a chance to fall in love, perhaps start a family or be a part of a family. And when these relationships don't work, as trivial as they may seem, that could also be another strike against someone who's really been hoping, man, I just want to find that one so I can start my family. So I actually give Natasha a lot of credit for being willing to come on and talk about this. Like I said, I know a lot of women here in Atlanta that are friends of mine that are extremely successful, but they don't have children, they haven't been married, and that's something that they're missing, and they have a right to try to figure out how to create the life that they want. I think we all do. And so I just want to ask you guys to please be open. There is so much so many opinions being thrown around. We don't know what the situation was, and so I think that's why it's important to have Cass on. I can say here, sometimes I think people mistake. I will ask people, I try to hold people accountable and ask them the questions that you guys want to ask them. I actually ask a lot of questions that you guys put in the chat. But at the end of the day, I am open to everyone telling their story. I would love to have Morgan come on. I would love to have Andre and Jeffrey and certain people, just because I may have a problem with some of the ways that they have acted on the show, or even the way things were edited. I am not anti anyone. I want everyone to find love. And I believe that a television show is a blip in a person's life, and we all have a right to kind of give some context to it, even if they're right or wrong. We've all made mistakes, so it is what it is. But as we wait for Natasha, I want to make sure the sound is right. So if you guys could please go ahead and drop an XO in the chat, and then also please like and share these conversations. We had on Sunday with Marcia, we had over 500 people tuning in. The chat was off the chain. And so I am going to ask you guys to please like and subscribe. We have a lot of new followers to the page, but people won't find out about it if you guys don't support by actually liking. You don't have to support by, if you buy a super chat, that's great. But what I'm asking you guys to do is just to like the chat and share it, especially tonight, because I feel like we have a lot of conversations that are gossip driven when it comes to Ready to Love. But I think tonight we're going to get a chance to really talk about what it feels like when you're single and you get to a point where you really do want that significant other. I can relate to that a lot. I think a lot of you that watch this channel can relate to that feeling. And Natasha's agreed to come on and be very honest and very candid about her experience with the show. And then also with trying to figure out what her plan B would be, for her life. Thank you so much, Janika. Thank you, Mimi. You guys are tried and true. I appreciate you guys' support, always being here. Like I said, Natasha was just getting in. We know she's a lawyer and she is going to be checking in with us in just a second. So you guys, thanks for being here and being ready for this conversation. I think that is going to be something I think that adds a little bit more context to just the Ready to Love conversation. You guys got to realize that these people, when they come on the show and they date, yes, we get into their business and we talk about it and all that, but some of them actually probably really get their hearts broken. Some of them really actually want to find someone, and this may be like an idea for them to think this could be their last chance, or this could be a chance at finding real love. And when that doesn't happen, I think some of them actually, do deal with heartbreak and do deal with trying to put their lives back together after this experience. And so I think giving them a little bit of grace. We see a lot of behavior, but I mean, I don't know. I definitely wouldn't want a camera on me 100% of the time, especially when I was younger and trying to figure things out. So with that being said, we're getting ready. Well, like I said, we're waiting for Natasha. Now, for those of you that don't know, I'm sure everybody that's here knows. But for those of you that don't know, Natasha left. She was actually the first person to leave Ready to Love, the first single to leave the show. And we thought that she didn't have any connection. She came on. We had a good conversation with her. If you haven't seen that, you can look through the archives and find. I need to go through and archive all the Ready to Love conversations by season. So I'm going to work on doing that over the next couple of weeks before this next season starts, so we can have that out the way. But Natasha was the first person to leave, and we didn't hear anything else about Natasha. We thought she had went on her way. She came on, talked, and everything was good. And then we saw all this drama starting to happen between Marcia, Tony, Morgan, and then Morgan and Tony and Lyndon had this little triangle. And in one of the conversations with Morgan, between Morgan and Tony, Morgan actually revealed that Tony had shared with her that he had been intimate with Natasha. Again, like I said, at that point, I was just like, that is totally not cool. That should not have happened. And I think production, and first of all, we know that there's a lot that happens that gets edited out. I feel like that should have been edited out, regardless of who did it. I feel like it should have been edited out because there's been so many people. There was a whole castmate pregnant on the show. You guys remember that? That was one of my top 10 moments. A whole pregnant, 5 months pregnant, and no one said anything about it. This woman who is off the show has a situation and is brought to the show and talked about, and I thought that was unfair. And so anyway, without further ado, let's bring our girl Natasha on. Hey, lady.
Hi. How are you?
Welcome back for your second time.
Thank you. It's been a while, though. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while because I think you were the first person that we talked to, actually. So
I was the first person to go home. So.
Yeah. Well, but you came back with a bang, Natasha. You came back with a bang. But I was saying that, first of all, I appreciate you being willing to come on. I know that this is something that's probably uncomfortable to talk about because it's ridiculous, but I think you have a right to tell your side of the story. A lot of people were making speculations, and even still, I see online a lot of people have their opinions about what happened. But I just feel like anytime your name is brought up on television and you're not there, I felt like it was very unfair. And so that's why I was like, hey, I definitely want to have her come on. I want to have Anthony and some other people come on, but I wanted to have you because I just felt like how you were treated was really, really unfair. Let's start with that. How did you see that episode where your name was mentioned, or did someone tell you about that?
I saw the previews that y'all saw about, leading up to it. And then I saw what was exactly what was said the same time y'all saw it. So I thought I had the heads up, but I didn't, because what was actually said, like, I didn't know that was coming. So literally learned at the same time y'all did.
And like I said while we were waiting for you, I think people forget that you guys are on television, but you're also a real person with real feelings.
Yeah.
So, can you talk? I can't imagine. I mean, most of us, all of us have made bad decisions or have done something and later it didn't work out. But to have that shared on national television, how did you feel at that moment hearing that and realizing that not only did you hear it, but the entire anyone with the own network heard it as well?
Yeah. I honestly cannot remember exactly like how I felt in that moment. But I think the initial shock and the ultimate shock was at the reunion. So that was like the first time being blindsided and feeling like, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking that was, when things came out. And then I was told that it came out while filming, that Tony and I were dating off camera. So that's kind of what I expected. So I do know that, understandably, I was a little like, and to learn, how it was brought out
Mhm.
was a little shocking, because, I'm like, I didn't know we had beef. Like, why are you coming for me, kind of thing. But I don't ever remember feeling like, woe is me, whatever. Like, at the end of the day, I'm a whole adult. And while we all do things where we have an expectation of privacy, sometimes, your secrets get told.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to roll with it, address what needs to be addressed, and stand. Like, I'm all about authenticity. So I'm never going to, like, stray away from what's true to me.
Okay.
And even in this setting, because it is public, and lots of people saw that, and people that I haven't talked to in a while hit me up like, yo, like, who is this and why is she, stuff like that. So it does. I'm human, and like you said, I have feelings too. So I do have the kind of like urge, I guess, to want to address it and take it point by point and be like, no, this is actually not what it was, and here's what it really was. But I just think that the bigger picture is more important to me personally,
Yeah.
and I am going to stand behind that, and I'm going to advocate for all women, before I focus on me, because I could take it. Like, majority of the comments have been positive, but even the negative ones, I'm just like, okay, well, they don't know, so like, why would I take it to heart?
Yeah. Well, I'm certain you can take it. You're a strong woman and you got a lot going for you. This is a blip in your life, but wrong is wrong and right is right. So I think that's what my response was. Definitely not feeling like you were going to be like, woe is me or anything. But I do think that it seems like there's some miscommunication. So I'm just going to ask you, what happened once you left the show? Because there was talk that did you and Tony have a connection, because it was really quick. I think Tony was like one of the most popular guys when you guys first got there. That's what I remember in people's confessions saying, Tony was a smooth talker. Tony was a smooth guy. So can you tell us what happened when you left? Were you and Tony connecting then? Did he reach out later? Did you reach out later? What happened when you exited the show?
So we exchanged numbers during the mixer. He's actually the only person from the show that I exchanged numbers with.
Okay.
I did connect with other people, but it was via Instagram, because I didn't exchange numbers with anyone else. And, at the mixer. And when I got back to my car, because everyone else was gone, like, I left, so I had to stay back and do an exit interview, which they didn't actually end up showing, but I had to stay back and, film that. So by the time I got to my car, like, my phone was dead, but, I charged it and then saw a text message from him, and I called him back.
Okay.
And talked to him, on my drive back home, and he said what he said about, what had actually transpired and how it was BS and blah, blah, blah. And from there, like his phone actually died before either of us made it home. And then, he messaged me back and said that his phone had died. And then we talked again the next afternoon, and we just kind of kept talking from there. And then I will have to go back and check text messages, but we talked on the phone for a little bit, like a few days or whatever, and then we ended up going out for the first time. So that's kind of like, that's where the start was.
Now, let me ask you, because we don't know, because we've not signed up for Ready to Love. So is there an agreement that you aren't supposed to? Because Tony said you broke the rule to Tony. Tommy said that to Tony.
Right.
Once somebody leaves the show, are you all, is it explained to you that you're not supposed to continue dating that person once they've left the show, or do they even address that?
They do address it, but absolutely not. That was not a rule. The actual rule was that while you are filming, they didn't want for cast members to like engage outside. And if anybody watches the show, immediately I thought about what had happened in like a couple seasons ago with DC.
Yeah.
Where I don't remember who they were, but two of the castmates, like you saw one episode and they were hitting it off, and then the next episode, and it's like, wait, they hate each other.
Yeah.
And they explained to us that, if you hang out outside of filming and then something happens in between filming, then they have to create like a storyline or do back, kind of backpedal a little bit. And I think in that season they did like Tommy sat down with one or both of them and had like a conversation to kind of tell the story. So that was something extra they had to do because it wasn't filmed. So I because I'm gonna read whatever I sign, and this was it wasn't in the main contract, but it was like a one pager that they gave us at the mixer. And I'm like, oh well, like what does this mean, whatever. And they explained it, and I was like, oh, because that happened one season. I remember that. Like I was discussing with one of the coordinating producers that I thought was, cool, whatever. And it was never a rule that you specifically, like, you can't go and like hang out or see anyone that was on the show and is no longer on the show, because that's not part of the storyline. Like I am no longer on the show, so I'm not supposed to be part of the storyline, which that's what was wild that my name got brought up, because it's like, y'all ain't got enough going on. Cause like y'all kind of, I don't know, it's like, I don't know. It's just like seeming like y'all needing more. And it's like, isn't there enough there? But when I left, and I can't say, like, tell a story that makes sense for everybody. All I could do is tell what really happened. And
we're not. Nobody's asking you to do that. I
saw a couple comments that were like, that doesn't even make sense. And it's like, I'm sorry, I can't make it make sense. Like sometimes it just doesn't. But what I will say is that two of the producers encouraged me to explore those options. And at the time, I didn't really think that it was like, I was just kind of like over it. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever. And
so wait a minute. They encouraged you to date Tony.
Outside. They encouraged me, if I made any connections on the show, at the mixer, that well, at least now you don't have to wait to be set up on a date, because that's how it goes with filming. Like if I did have a connection with one or two guys at the mixer, I would have to sit back and wait for them to call me and say like, okay, you're going on a date, and then go to the date and see like who that person's going to be. And it may or may not be one of those two people. But in this case, like I don't have to wait for that. And, after I got over I was surprised that I went home. Like, I think it's kind of difficult for someone to make such a strong connection or whatever. But I was vibing with a few of the guys, so I was surprised. So once I got over that, and, you just kind of get back to regular life, then it was like, okay, I do want to, see if there was a connection there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, like I said before you got on, Natasha, I think there are a few people. Now, I think the audience is kind of gets a little bit numb to the fact that there are people that really want to find love, because it seems like a lot of people come on here to play or come on here to get famous. So I'm going to ask you, where were you at? I know we talked about this initially, but were you really hopeful that maybe you would find your person on Ready to Love?
100%. I love a good story. And I always kind of felt like it was becoming such like a long drawn out journey for me because, I just always envisioned, well, not always, but, as time kept going on, it was like, oh, but my love story is going to be amazing. And the way I even found out about Ready to Love was my best friend had seen the show, called me one day and was like, have you seen this show called Ready to Love? And I was like, I don't think so. Went and looked at it and I was like, no, I've never seen it. She's like, you need to watch it. She was like, I think this is the kind of show that you could go on and you could really find someone. And I was like, why? And side note, like her niece was obsessed with me being on The Bachelor, like obsessed with it. And I was just like, I don't know, that's kind of gross. Like they be kissing the same people. Like one person is just like kissing this person and 5 minutes later she kissing another person or whatever. Yeah. And I felt like that show was so competitive that to me, when I've watched it here and there, it's like, how do you know that the people really like you or feel like you're their person because they just want to win? So I didn't like that setup, but this setup was different because it's just kind of like putting people together and letting them organically see who they match up with. Is what I thought. So when this show came about and then I got selected, I was like, oh, I'm gonna find my man. So the point, like, I'm so corny that like I recorded a video of me like after we went to interviews and it was like right before the mixer, and I recorded like a video talking to him, kind of saying like, oh, I can't wait to meet you, like can't wait to fall in love, things like that. And I forgot about that video and found it like a few days ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, cause now looking back almost a year ago, I'm like, dang, I really, really went in there thinking that I'm finna find my man.
Yeah.
But I 100% absolutely did. And what was the most shocking to me that if I were to go in thinking, knowing what I knew beforehand about production and even reality TV, like I know some people who do reality TV, like that's their job, like they get paid like real money for it. And I know that it's not scripted. However, you have some influence from the production. Like I didn't go in completely naive to that, but I just didn't think that dudes were doing, like if they came on the show, I really thought like the man would have been serious.
Open. Yeah, but, open, at least open. I think you should have went on Married at First Sight because that's
my mom said that.
That's the energy that you have is the Married at First Sight. That is like I really like because that's the energy I want to find my person. I really am serious about that. And so I want to ask you, because we had a little bit of a conversation. I watched your YouTube link that you sent me, and I can relate to it. Not as because I got married and had children early, so I had my children. But after a certain point in my life, I was like, whoa. So I got divorced like when I was 31, 32. And after I got into my 40s, I was like, I guess I'm just going to end up doing this life alone. I started to get a little concerned, right? I started looking around. I was like, where is he? Did his GPS get thrown off? Like, where is my guy? So I want to know from you, like prior to coming on Ready to Love, because it's obvious that you had aspirations to get married and to have a family. Were you getting to the point where your biological clock started getting louder and you're like, look, where is this guy? It's time for him to show up. Where is he at? Were you feeling that way at all?
I mean, of course. And not so much the biological clock, even though that's been ticking. But I hear like all the time about women that, in their 40s or whatever are not just having children, but just having their first child. So it's not to say that I intentionally waited a long time. However, I did focus heavily on school and then my career. And when I got to the place where it was like, all right, like I'm solid here. So now I'm ready. But I also spent, years in therapy and working through things that I didn't even recognize as like the source of issues. Like, because therapy helps you like dive deep to figure out like what is the source of why are you reacting like this? Why are you repeating the same patterns over and over again? So I got to a place where I was like, all right. So I switched up what I was like praying and asking for, because before I was basically like praying and asking for God to work on me so that when he finds that it's the right time and sends him my way, that I will be ready. Like I didn't want to like miss my opportunity and mess it up. So I started to shift my prayer, my focus on, all right, can we have him now? Like, can he come my way? Like, I think I'm ready.
Yeah.
So that definitely was a shift for me, and it shifted my focus. And I realized, faith without works is dead. Like,
Mhm.
we hear that, we know that. So I started, doing the apps and trying to go out more and whatever. And it just wasn't working. But
Yeah.
it did start to, just kind of get louder. Like, all right, like I'm ready for it. So like
Mhm.
when is it gonna be my turn?
Yeah.
So I,
What were some of the issues in dating? Because I always ask you guys this when you come to talk to me after Ready to Love, because I remember I guess I was single for a long time, but I cannot imagine going on Ready to Love just because I've seen it and I've talked to people since season one. So I'm super suspicious of all of it. But what were some of the issues? I just know for me as a career woman, a lot of times I know men did not like the fact that I worked as much as I did.
Mhm.
And I also kind of got dating became I did not like dating. Like I'm not a person that likes to go out and meet a new guy every week. What was your experience dating that things weren't getting you to the relationship where you felt like you're moving forward?
It's kind of twofold. Like, with me personally, I think it's the patience in the beginning. I personally don't like the dating process. Like, I don't like that initial, what's your favorite color? Like, I don't like that. I don't like the small talk. But it's not fair to expect somebody to just walk in and just pour whatever information you're looking for.
Mhm.
So I know that I like needed to work on doing a better job at that, like asking those questions that were important to me, and
Mhm.
then still being patient and going through that process, because there's some fluff around it. So that was me, because people always say like, oh, you don't make time, but I make time for everything that I want to and feel like I need to.
Mhm.
So I make time, like I can. So even if I'm not available on that day, I will make sure that whatever the next day, the person wants to, like, I make time for it.
Okay.
Um, but on the other end, I feel like I became kind of like an achievement for some people.
Mm.
And I, I don't, like, someone pointed out, they were like, you seem to always attract narcissists. And I was kind of like, oh, that's rude. Like,
Mhm.
why should we, well, I attract them. But I, through looking it up, realized that narcissists are attracted to the type of person that I give off.
Mhm.
And along with that,
Which
with
is what? What is
like
that?
strong, ambitious, like no nonsense, that type. It's like an achievement for them, because they think that they're the top of the list, the top of the chain, you know what I'm saying? So it's like they feel like they could do it. And along with that, I think that men expect for me to be like that strong, like alpha, and I'm really not when it comes to dating. I'm
Mhm.
just not. And we actually had that conversation, and I'm more like Sigma. Like, I can, be the leader and I can be assertive, but when it comes to dating, I look for the man that is not, you know, manly and all of that alone, but a
Mhm.
leader, one who
Okay.
is wanting to provide and, wanting to be the traditional husband type of guy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like those kind of guys aren't really gonna naturally gravitate to me just based upon the image or what I give off. So
Okay.
it became situations where I would date a guy, and within like that first month, let's say,
Mhm.
sometimes it was a lot shorter, sometimes it could be a little bit longer. But whenever it got to the point where it was like, okay, I'm starting to like kind of like him, whether I said it out loud, my actions were going to kind of show that I was starting to like him. And
Mhm.
then almost instantly they would kind of flip the script and
Mm.
stop doing the things that they were doing that were making me like them. And the first time that happened, I asked him, like, dang, it's like you did a 180. And he was like, I didn't do a 180. It's just I'm becoming more of myself. And that was my first experience with a narcissist. So now I kind of recognize those signs a little earlier. And regardless of how much time I spend with them, how much I invest in them, how much of whatever I give to them, I'll waste my time,
Mhm.
because I feel like that's an issue too, because you feel like, oh, well, I've already like gone. this far or spent this much time or invested this much energy into it. Like I want to try to make it work, not at
Mm-hmm.
this age.
Yeah.
So I tend to do that, date a couple guys or whatever, go on a date. Like I said, it could be 2 dates and I'm just like, nah. Or it
Mm-hmm.
could be, a couple of months. But when I get to that point where I see those things that I know is a no, then I
Mm-hmm.
just move on. But I get tired of the process too. So then
Yeah.
I take huge gaps in between.
Yeah.
And when it's a bad situation, I take even longer.
Yeah.
So I
And
think that's my biggest problem.
that is, yeah, I was like that. Now that I can relate. So I would take gaps, and you can't do that. If you took gaps like that in your career, we would not be where we are in our career. So that being said, let's talk about what the situation was. I don't know how long you and Tony dated, but when he reached out and you guys were having conversation, because Tony, what we got from him the other night was a lot different than what we've seen from him on the show. On the show, it was very much like, just I don't even want to say alpha, because I think people get confused with that title. People don't really understand what that is, but just very authoritative, and seemed to really know what he wanted. But what was your experience like? That's one of the things that Marcia said, is that she did not have the same experience with Tony that we saw on television with he and Morgan. Did you see that Tony, or did you have a different Tony when you guys were talking and interacting?
I don't know if I had a different Tony, but the Tony that was sitting at the table, saying like, I'm not going to let you do that. Like that was more of the Tony that I did get to know. Tony and I had a lot of deep conversations. I think maybe we had like one argument, and it was, I'm just a really understanding person. So it's like, I'm going to kind of push the envelope to have a conversation, like figure out like, what is the root of this? You had a bad day. Did I come off a certain way?
Mm-hmm.
So it was, it was an argument, I guess, but it wasn't like what we saw on TV. So I just didn't see such toxicity like that.
Mm-hmm.
However, there were things that I did see that I didn't like. And had I met Tony in another setting, then it wouldn't have gotten to the place that it was, because it's easy to meet somebody that was a stranger to you,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're going to be a stranger once you decide not to talk to them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are, connected in a sense where we can decide if we ain't working out, but I'm still going to see you at
Mm-hmm.
least a few more times because of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And there was never anything outwardly like, extreme to where I'm going to be like, I never want to talk to you again and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't like that, but there were just things that turned me off. And I knew it wasn't going to be a forever type thing, like what he was saying in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? But
So he
I
was saying in the beginning that he thought you guys could have a real connection, like to go the distance.
100%. 100%. Like that's how it started off. But like every guy is different. And unique to me is that I'm used to the guy that is like, when they're love bombing, they
Yeah.
like pew, 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 like
Yeah.
it's heavy.
Yeah.
So I am hypersensitive to that in the beginning because I've experienced that. However, it was giving you all the things that you look for with regard to making sure that the person is serious and intentional.
Mm-hmm.
However, I still knew that he was dating other people, which,
Okay.
like, the connection with the show is one thing. That's why I say I'm not like, woe is me. I
Mm-hmm.
knew what was going on. However, when you're dating somebody in the real world, before there is a commitment and that person, y'all have a conversation or they tell you that y'all are in a committed relationship, they're dating other people. Like, and if
Absolutely.
you should still expect that they are. I try
Absolutely.
to convince myself that I need to date other people. I just can't do it. Like personally, it's just not. I can't do it. I can't divide like my energy up. But
Yeah.
that's my choice. That's me. I still move as if they're dating other people
We
because
all should,
that's
right?
realistic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely was going down that path.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I am not emotional. That's why I'm like not, saying things like, oh my gosh, you fooled me, you lied to me, whatever. He wasn't honest. He wasn't genuine the same way he wasn't with any of the other women. either the ones on the show or the ones that have,
Let
spoken
let
out now.
let me ask you this though. What did you like? What did you like about him? Because we saw you on the show where you said that he ghosted you. He said that that's not true. Uh, but
He,
well, he explained why it wasn't like a ghost. He said that what you didn't reach out that many times, and it was because he felt like you had said something and it made him feel uncomfortable. He said you told the producer that you guys had been intimate, and that made him feel like he was being set up, and that's why he stopped talking to you. So I'm wondering for you guys to get to that point, because I mean, just real talk, we're all adults, so things happen. But for you to for you guys to get to a point where there was intimacy, there had to be something about Tony that you genuinely liked. There had to be some part of him that you felt was authentic for you guys to get to that point. So what was that? Because we didn't see a lot of that from you guys. We didn't know anything was going on. So what was it about him that did make you respond to him? And then I guess ultimately what is your side? Did you tell production that you guys were intimate? Because that was the reason that he gave for stopping the relationship and not talking to you anymore.
I didn't tell production that. And the part that they didn't show was my initial response to that was, nobody didn't tell you that. Because to me at the reunion, again, that was months ago, and that was a couple months after we had stopped filming. Mm-hmm. I thought that was Tony looking for his moment to try to, stay relevant, get whatever, or just come at me sideways or whatever. I thought that he just was using that as his excuse. And I don't know one way or the other if that's the case. I know that to this day, he says that production told him that. Mm-hmm. However, I think that it is absurd for you to either, one, think like, why would Natasha be talking about anything, going on with us to y'all and want to ask me, or if he believed it to be true, even though he clearly had been running around telling, personal business. So it's still kissing and telling. So right. Even though he had been running around telling people for whatever reason, he still, if you believe that to be true, why you didn't pick up your phone and confront me about it? Like if you're so alpha, then if someone's coming to you and telling you this, but then you're now saying, but I didn't want to do it, and I was, told this, and they told me this, and they said they were gonna do this about it or whatever, then you still made a choice to have that conversation publicly. Yeah. So because when they came to me, and then after the fact, when I've talked about it, I still am not going to sit up here and talk about my personal business. There's a lot I can say. And I told him that, like, I could drag you, I could talk however, but one, I don't care. And then two, I don't just start doing stuff because someone has like opened that door. Like, I'm not just going to start talking about it because, someone else put me here. Mm-hmm. I will respond to things. I will answer questions, but me just getting on some platform or even on my own platform and just being like, oh, well, let me tell you what the real tea is. And this is what happened. So I still have made that choice, even though it's been put on my lap, but you couldn't make that choice. Like, you still made a choice. Like, you couldn't decide like, well, I'm not going to talk about that. You couldn't do that. And then if you're such a big man and you are so pissed to try to embarrass me at the reunion, because it was still blindsided. Like, you didn't come to me between whenever that conversation was, which couldn't have been that it couldn't have been that much like before the end of filming. Let's just say that. And you didn't, that time all the way to the reunion, you didn't come to me and say, hey, like after you've had time to think about it.
Yeah. So what did you think? Why did you think you guys weren't talking anymore?
I thought that it was because we were going to all have to come together at the intro shoot. And he, I'm like, you must have some kind of connections, even though I'm hearing that, our season, for the first time, nobody's really having any connections. No one's really like matching up. So it's just kind of like, everybody's like kind of, wondering what's going to be the ending. I'm like, there must be something, but based upon things that I picked up on, I was like, he probably ain't being intentional or genuine, but he got something going on or has somebody thinking that he has something going on. So
Right.
how am I going to walk into the place with that other person and then
His
greet them
spot's gonna
the
get
same
blown up.
way or whatever? And then it's going to be like, wait, why? Like, why y'all hugging? Why she, greeting you like this or whatever? And then so I thought he was going to pick an argument, but
He did kind of, but
he didn't pick an argument. He just literally, we talked one day. I saw him. We talked, I think, the next morning or something. Later on that night, he didn't answer. The next day, like I said on the reunion, I'd heard not just from that previous day, but from other days that there was an issue with drinking. So I was like, let me put my pride to the side, and just check
so
on him.
you were seriously concerned about him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a person, and if this is somebody I liked or cared about at some point, I'm not just gonna lose it. How I respond to things is going to change, and how far I'm willing to go, that's gonna change. But you don't just stop. Like you don't. It wasn't like a deep love that can go to hate. Like I'm not just gonna be like, I don't care if you drinking and driving. I don't care if you, whatever. Then I again, it was only a day, like in change. So it's not like I hadn't talked to him and he had ghosted me for a week. So I'm not recognizing the extent of it. So I called him the next morning or texted him or something. And my last text message to him before around that time was, "Hey, are you okay?" And then I called him. He didn't answer. And then something just said, "Just check his social media." And I did, and he had blocked me. So I was like, okay, that's strange behavior for a dude. And like I still feel like that's strange behavior. So that's why I say, like, it's not. And if I was mad, I could have popped up at his house. I could have popped up at his work. I could have, if I was emotionally charged and mad about that, then I would have. But it was more so like, who does that?
Well, let me ask you this. I'm this realistic because this is what I thought, and I could be wrong. But I just feel like sometimes dudes are players. They get what they want, which is to conquer, and then they move on, and they move on, and they don't want to have a uncomfortable conversation. So it's like, I'm just trying to see if I can hit, and if I can, I'm good and I'm out. So, and then especially when there's other women he's dealing with, and we don't know whoever else he dealt with or what, because we don't know. The funny thing is, women, we always, especially us women of color, we will always cover for the guy and still have his back and still be concerned about him. And he's treating us without kindness, and we continue to treat him with kindness. Some of that is class and some of that is self-sabotage. But do you think that, watching Tony's behavior now, do you think that he was just playing to get what he wanted to get and to get as many notches on his belt and then keep it moving? Or do you think that he really, I don't know, because for him to throw you under the bus that way, it feels like he threw you under the bus, because he said that you told production, and he got upset about it, like physically upset. You could see he was reacting to what he said had happened. So do you believe that he believes that, or do you think that maybe he was playing a situation to get what he wanted and then moved on?
So it's difficult because I feel like I'm in two. Like I feel like I had it was like the Groundhog Day type thing where you live like the same day over and over again. Like I feel like I was blindsided and like, are you joking right now at the reunion? And then again when watching the entanglement episode. So at the reunion, when he said that, I was like, miss me with all of that. Like, nobody told you that. Because to me, it was like far-fetched. And I genuinely felt like if somebody would have said that to you, you would have came and confronted me about it or something. And so I, at that time, thought like, he's so pressed to be on this show that he is creating something to, I guess, add to his storyline. And at this time, after the episode, like how I sit today, I do. I mean, because I did have a conversation with him right after that entanglement episode. And Tony's Tony, okay? But because he was so adamant about it and then called me the next day and said, I found out who it was that said it. And so I do think that maybe somebody did say something, and I genuinely do not think that a producer came to him and was like, Natasha said y'all was intimate.
That
I
doesn't
think
make
the
any sense.
producer put two and two together, or like, oh, I heard that he's dating, that Tony's dating Natasha still, or was dating Natasha, and they use certain words to get him to tell himself. And that's exactly what I told him in that conversation. Let him
Yeah.
talk about it. And then, I was like, okay, like, let's move on from that. Like, that's the oldest trick in the book, for somebody to act like they know something and
Mm.
then get
To
you
try to
to,
get to, yeah.
yeah. And he's like, well, I'm not an attorney, I don't know those things. And I'm like, at this big age, like, you got played. So let's move on from that, because there are still things that you did wrong in this situation. And for you to be better in your next relationship or situationship or whatever your goal is, like, you gotta address those things, instead of saying like, the producers are at fault for this.
Yeah.
This was my mindset and that's why I did this. Like, that's not truly like accepting. Saying like, I take all of that, I accept it and I apologize. That's not true like accountability.
That's not.
So,
It's not. My best. Tony said that he was in therapy, and I hope that continues. Because I don't think he's a bad guy, but I do think sometimes when a guy is put in a situation that he may not be in all the time, where he has a lot of beautiful women at his and I'm sure Miami is full of beautiful women, but just still in a TV show, it's like you guys are all there, captive audience. It's different. Let me ask you this Natasha, and then I want to ask you a little bit about your journey outside of this. But one of the reasons that Tony explained for sharing with both Morgan and Marcia, and we don't know whoever else may have known as well, about you guys' relationship, was that he wanted to be honest. Was he talking to you about his connections with other women on the show since you guys were dating, or did he not give you the same benefit of the doubt, I guess?
it is not benefit of the doubt, because it's about being honest and being true. Like, if you're an honest and true person, because in the beginning he was telling me about stuff that was going on in the show,
Okay.
and I told him I wasn't going to ask or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of stopped, and I asked, and it was like, well, what do you want to know? Like, specific questions. And I was just like, well, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm just,
Yeah.
bringing it up in conversation because I haven't, and I told him from the beginning, like, I ain't trying to, if you meet somebody, like, you got a connection or whatever, then go and do that. Because very, very early on, I also said that, like, how about you just finish the show out? And if you don't find, love, if nothing comes from it and I'm still single, then we can explore then. Yeah. So, circling back to that, it was, hey, like, if, keep it real, you know what I'm saying? Because I was like, it's one thing to lead someone on or say whatever sounds good to say on the show. It's weird. But if that's your MO, again, that's weird. But that is, I guess that there's a reason behind that. I said, but if
Yeah,
you
I
lie,
don't even know if it's weird. It's self-serving.
well, he's a self-serving person. But if you are lying to me and there's no advantage of doing that, then that's a character flaw. And his response was like, exactly. So like, why would you think that, something's, what I'm saying? Like, why would you think that I'm lying? And da-da-da. I was like, that's not my job. Because at the end of the day, like, you a big grown person, like, right and wrong. So if you do that, I'm just saying that's a character flaw for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's not even like, you're withholding information for a purpose or whatever. Like, that's a character flaw and that ain't cool.
Yeah.
So no, he didn't tell me about either of them. In fact, he said things that were contradictory to that. But what I wonder, and I'm not even invested enough to ask or truly care, but either you told Morgan and Marcia after production came to you, which means that you didn't tell them to be honest, or you told them before, which means that you definitely should have had a conversation. Because if production found out after you told them, and they're on the show and directly connected with production and the producers, but you believe that I went out of my way to go and tell producers for what? Like, it just, the common sense ain't there. Like, it's not connecting for me. So
Yeah.
I don't think it, like I said, it's anything about benefit of the doubt. It's more so he told what he needed to tell to get what he wanted. Like, it was very self-serving and whatever. Like, everybody has their goals. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not mad about the situation, but it's like once I see a person for who they are and take off those, rose-colored glasses where you see everything perfectly.
Yeah.
And this isn't the first time that I've kept on those, rose-colored glasses, like I call them, a little bit too long or whatever. And sometimes, I still want to go in my, nightstand and pull them back out for some people. But, when you know better, you do better.
That's true. And let's leave them. Let's take out the glasses and step on them for tone. Let's don't go back. Because I mean, I'll admit, everybody, we all have those people that whatever reason we're either physically attracted to them or they make us feel a certain kind of way or whatever. But no, we cannot do that because it keeps us. If you're on a trajectory to finding an amazing relationship where you can have a family, that type of foolishness keeps you away from that. So it's like you're taking me away from where I want to be. So let's talk about that because I thought it was so brave, and I told you this, that you shared your story about freezing your eggs for other women. Because again, a lot of people are looking at this show. It is entertainment, and Will Packer has done a great job of creating a reflection of the dating pool. But a lot of people are genuinely dating with intention. They want to find their person. They want a family. They want to find someone that they can potentially have children with and start the second part of their lives. And so I feel like you were a person in that situation. And so after this didn't work out for you, you still wanted to go ahead and did you do this retrieve and freeze your eggs after the show, after you filmed the show? Okay. So let's talk about what led you to that and what that process was like for you.
And I just want to add before I go into that, because you said, like whether you're attracted to the person or whatever. I think and I'm adding this because I'm sure I'm not the only one. Mm-hmm. I think my biggest downfall has been that I don't like to fail. Mm-hmm. So I will stay in a situation and think that I can like fix it or make it what it was because I just become so invested in the potential that you saw or how you saw it being. And then it's like you don't want to have to go back to what's your favorite color again with somebody else. So it's like, you're like, well, maybe if I just invest more time. And my therapist always talks about, she was like, your discernment is a gift from God, and you need to like stop playing yourself basically and just be okay with leaving a situation. Like it's not a failure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's great. No, that's good.
Yeah. But okay, so the IVF
process. Let me on that point, because my girlfriend Chili told me something a long time ago. I was just saying, I don't like to fail either. And she said, Crystal, in business, they tell you to fail fast, right? That's the key to business, is to fail fast. And she would say, find out, go out, find out if you like somebody and get out. If at the first red flag, at the first time your body is like, if you listen then, because when you stay, then you develop feelings, right? And then our feelings get in the way and then we're not clear-headed. And I remember thinking, why would you say that? That's so weird to say, fail fast. But that really is true. I understand that now because the more you listen to that women's intuition that God gave us, that lets us know, and you can get out, because the longer you stay, then you've got more skin in the game. You may have shared information, you've had memories, and you've created all this stuff. So I think, we have to stop looking at things as a failure and looking at it as divine intervention, right? Rejection is God's protection. So when something feels wrong, it's okay. Just redirect. And this channel is really for women. So I appreciate you saying that point, because that's so true. If we listen to that gut as women, we'll be so much better off, so much better off. So yes. And then destroy our rose colored glasses. Like if you got to take them bitches outside and burn them, get rid of them.
Now, and I just like, I cannot do the comments thing. Like, I don't know how y'all do it, but I scrolled by a comment by someone that I've seen before, like in another live that I did, but about me needing additional therapy. And I will be the first to say that I am I'm my biggest critic, and I am a work in progress, like every day. I'm always a student, even when I'm a teacher. So I say that to say that, child, like I didn't miss no marks there. And I'm just not interested enough or invested enough or care enough to really break this timeline down. And I thought about it. Oh, I tell you, I thought about it, because everything that I say, I could back it up with a text message. Like I can really paint the picture.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole fail fast thing is so important because some people will stay in a situation because they've gone to a certain place.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will still go to that place and they know in their mind that like this ain't it. But at the end of the day, like my time is not only money, but it's the one thing in life that I can't get back.
Yeah.
So I have to go 1,000 miles a minute. And this is not just relationships, anything. If I got to go 1,000 miles a minute and figure something out, then I'm going to do that. Because at the end of the day, if I would have stayed in, any of those relationships where it's like the wisdom was there and it was just like, this ain't it. I recognize these signs. I'm done. And you do it like confidently, then who do I have to prove something to stay somewhere for 6 months to be like, oh, well, we dated for 6 months. At the end of the day, it was still a waste of time and didn't work out.
Yeah.
So
and now I got more hurt and I got more time I wasted and really more damage to myself because a bad relationship, first of all, everybody needs therapy consistently. So that's not a smart statement as far as in relation to someone issues. We all need help. That's just life. But there's nothing that can destroy your sense of self and your ability to think rationally than a dysfunctional relationship, right? So being with the wrong person really, really gets to us in a different type of way. So the best thing you can do is keep yourself in a healthy environment. So I thank you guys for hanging out for this conversation because I said this is really more than just Ready to Love. I really wanted to have a real conversation with Natasha. So I like I said, you shared on your platform and we're talking about, being a woman that decides this is, I want more in life. I want to have a family. And ultimately you decided to take that into your own hands. Like you said earlier, faith without works is dead. So tell us what made you make that decision and how did you start?
Yeah, so I've been saying for, oh my gosh, as long as I can remember that I want as many kids as I can afford, like literally since college. And I was in a super, super long relationship that lasted all the way through college, all the way through, my career before law school and halfway through law school. So very, very long relationship. And, during that relationship and then after, I kind of felt like if I didn't have kids by a certain age, then it's like I wasn't going to be able to have a bunch of kids.
Right.
But once that relationship was over and it was kind of like, okay, well, if no kids by 30, I'm gonna do it on my own. And then 30 came and that was really when I just like turned into like a butterfly as I felt. Like I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm 30 and this is amazing. I don't know if other women have felt like that, but 30 was it for me. And I was like, well, 34. And then it was 35 and then 36. You know what I'm saying? It just like kept climbing because it was just kind of like scary to do it on my own. And I just kept thinking like, no, my man gonna come. But I realized that like you don't know how fertile you are until you try to have kids.
Facts.
So I set up an appointment with the fertility doctor in Miami, and I think I set it up like a month or two before because they were so backed up. And when I went there, it was just more of an exploration. Like, what are my options? How do I figure out if I can have kids, I guess. I don't know.
Now, how old were you at this when you went to this appointment?
37. Okay. So I'm 38 now. From November. So I went in October. So this was like right before my 38th birthday. Okay. And she went through like explaining how, because most women know, but I realized that some women don't know. And I haven't known for that long. But we don't like make eggs. So you're born with a certain number of eggs, or, whenever you go through that phase in your life, you have these eggs and that's your number. And then every month you lose the eggs that you don't use. So I actually learned that probably like 4 or 5 years ago, not that long ago, from the doctor that I was seeing and having a separate conversation. And she mentioned that. And I was like, oh, that's true. And I was like, what should I do? And she was like, nothing really you can do, but you'll be fine. It was like, okay. So, I had an ultrasound at that time and did some blood work. And she was like, well, do you want to freeze your eggs? And I was like, oh, I'm too old for that. Because online, they basically say 34 is kind of like the cutoff. And she was like, no, you're not. She was like, I like to do it before 38. But even 38 is not a cutoff because it depends on the individual woman, how many follicles she has, things like that. Okay. So I was like, you just saying that because I'm about to be 38. And then she told me success story of a lady who came and froze her eggs at, she came in like for an appointment like me, came
Mhm.
back at 38, went through the process, fertilized her eggs at 45, and she was just recently in there with her daughter. And
Oh,
so I was like, look at you telling me how my life's going to be, because I'm thinking like 45 is a great time. I get to enjoy life a little bit longer.
I don't know about that, Natasha. Woo,
All my
woo,
friends in their 40s are like, girl, you don't want no kids. Like,
woo.
don't have them. Don't do it. But so I asked her, did she do it on her own? And she said no. She actually met her partner a couple, years before that. They fertilized her eggs together, went through
Mhm.
the rest of the IVF process, and
Mhm.
like her happily ever after.
Yeah.
And long story short, there's a lot of blood work and a lot of appointments and a lot
Mhm.
of money. But I wanted to do it because while I've realized that I don't want to have a child on my own, I have friends that are doing that and it's tough. So it's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to do that. But I didn't want to get to whatever age and then be at that place in my life where it's right and then I can't. And then
Yeah.
look back and say I should have, and whatever. I'm not a regret type of person. Like I don't look back at stuff. I always find the beauty in every situation. So I
Mhm.
didn't want this to be the one thing that I'm like looking back on, because I always say like the person I'm gonna be tomorrow, because I feel like we're forever changing. So it's like that person I'm gonna be at 40 or whatever. I don't want her to look back at this person and be mad at me. So it's like I'm gonna go ahead and do it like a just in case type thing.
Yeah.
But my hope is still that when I do meet the guy for me, that I'll still be able to conceive naturally, but it's like at least they're there.
Yeah, no, I think that's really smart. And I think that is a great option. Alex Press says, I really appreciate this conversation because I was just talking to my sister about freezing my eggs. I'm still undecided. I think every situation that gives you options is a smart one.
Mhm.
But one of the things that you talked about, in the video that you sent me was that, it is a lot. And I think that process, I have a girlfriend that's going through that process, and actually a few girlfriends have gone through that process, and it does make you think about where you're at in life, the fact that you thought you might be in a different place, or
Mhm.
what, it's just a lot going on because your emotions are going on, your hormones are going on.
Mhm.
And I've heard my friends, voice becoming kind of depressed at some time, and just very, very, very emotional. So can you talk a little bit about how your process was and how emotionally you kind of dealt with the ups and downs of the process of freezing your eggs?
So, spoiler, I cried in my YouTube video that I did about this. And when I posted it, I think on Sunday, it was posted. I think it was Sunday. I called like, my team that does that. And I was like, I can't do it. Like, I can't. And I was like, because, people are mean. And I don't care if people say things that like aren't true or isn't something that's already like a sensitive thing for me. So if
Mhm.
someone, compliments my looks, but that's not something I'm insecure about, I'm like, oh, that's funny because I thought that, I looked cute or whatever. But like I struggled with acne, for example, for a long time. And it's like I finally got that clear, but it's like it's not, my skin's not where I want it to be. So not me telling like my insecurity so people know where to like poke, but that's like an area where it will be like, but all it's gonna do is make me go to the doctor and get it fixed faster.
See,
So
I don't think that, Natasha. I remember when I was divorced, like, so I
mhm,
lived in Atlanta and I was an entertainment publicist. I
mhm,
had a book out and I had all this stuff, and everybody knew I was married. And then my
mhm,
ex-husband cheated on me with someone that worked with him and started a whole relationship with that woman. I was humiliated, right? And I'm in an industry where everything has to look perfect. And I remember thinking, I don't want people to know that my husband had an affair and left me, because a lot of times women are mean to each other. What did you do? Oh, you didn't do enough. Why'd your husband? It was I just was like, I do not want people to know.
mhm,
I was blessed to have a conversation with Afeni Shakur. I was doing some work for the Tupac Shakur Foundation here.
mhm,
This was years ago, like in maybe 2007. And she, I was just in a depressed state because I'm here hiding heartbreak. The love of my life is in a whole relationship. I don't want people to know. People are like, oh, what happened? Why are you divorced? You don't want to say, oh, well, he left me for a woman at his job. Like, so I was just really depressed. And she started talking to me, and I didn't have any family here. So, older lady talking to you, I'm listening to her and I'm talking. I explained to her what happened. And she told me, she said, when you tell your story, when you tell people what hurts you, that takes away their power to hurt you. Right. And I mean, we had this long conversation about it, but after that conversation, I just, decided to own up to it. Yes, I'm going through a divorce, blah, blah, blah. And I realized that even as a publicist, I tell clients to, control the narrative. I don't think when you tell something that's an insecurity, it gives people a ability to poke. They're going to poke, but I think it gives you strength. I think
Yeah.
it gives you strength because for you to say, I had trouble with acne when I was growing up too. Oh my God. I remember just so many things that we deal with being insecure as women, right? Weight, all types of stuff. But when I say that, I am giving myself power to acknowledge it. And then I'm taking away the power of someone else to say that.
Mhm.
So I think that is, well, first of all, you are sharing something that other women are dealing with. There are so many women. Most of my friends here are freaking amazing career women. A lot of them have no children, right? A lot of them are trying to figure this out. I have a friend that's in her 50s that's trying to do this right now. And it's way harder in your 50s than it is, in your late 30s. So I think that you are empowering yourself and you're empowering others. And I think probably you don't even understand how much you are empowering yourself, by just putting those things out there. It makes you stronger. So I just wanted to say that I also think just being real about things and not trying to make it pretty and just being 100% authentic, that's how people get help. And that's also how you help yourself. So you've done something amazing. So talk to us a little bit more about, so where are you at now in the process? Have you frozen? Because you were like, my kids, they're taking the children and they put them in different, I didn't realize you have to separate them so they don't. So tell us a little bit more about how that process goes. And because after they retrieve the eggs, they have to store them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess you have to wait on some, insemination from the right guy.
Yeah, so mine will be my kids gonna be in the freezer for a little while. Because Natasha, they mama not ready for them right now. So
yeah.
But it, like, back to the emotional part, like watching the video back and just like skimming through it, because they put it all together for me, and then skimming through it and seeing, just like little parts of it. And of course I saw the part where I'm like crying and I'm like, oh, they left that in there. But I told them, I was like, no, I'm going to be transparent, I'm going to be authentic, like leave it in there, it's fine. So I see it and I skim through it, and then next thing I know, my eyes start feeling wet again, and I'm like, oh, we got time for this. So I gave like the skin, like the complexion acne thing as an example, because it's like, if I say it out loud, then it's like, if somebody says it, it's like I already said it to myself and hurt my feelings, so it's like it doesn't really matter. But it was kind of like that. So I thought of like, what's the worst thing that someone like can negatively say about this, and then it was just kind of like, well, that would be dumb, and then I'm over it. So it's like, I knew that I had to post this because I'm like, somebody out there needs to know it. And the reason why it was so difficult is that the medication, there's a lot of hormones are getting pumped into your body. First, oral medication that I had to take for about 10 days to 2 weeks, I don't remember. And that one started to make me feel down. Like I started feeling kind of like just low vibrations. I wouldn't say like depressed, but I literally had to like force myself to get up in the morning and like start my day. And even if I had somewhere to be or something to do, I was just like dragging. And I was like, okay, maybe I need more coffee, or maybe, I just was like trying to put it off. But when I started the injections, I was very busy with work, but I was focused on remembering the injections and kind of like prepping myself for what I thought would be inevitable while taking them. The injections are 10 to 12 days, but mine was 14 days. But after the injections is when it started with me. And that was the worst time for me, because I'm thinking like, okay, well, the medicine's out of my system, so it must be me. Like, I'm just a lazy person. Like I said, I'm my own worst critic. So I was just being really, really mean to myself. That same therapist, my forever therapist, basically told me about another patient that she had that had gone through the process. she got depressed. She didn't feel like herself again until she was able to try the again, because she was going through the full process with her husband to try to conceive. It didn't work, so she had to go through another cycle. You can't start the next cycle until like your next period. So it had to have been at least
Yeah.
6 to 8 weeks that she started to feel normal again. And I was like, what?
That's a
So
long.
that's what happened to me. And the medication was still in my body to where I was having like body aches and I couldn't even get relief from like Tylenol. I tried every pain reliever and I'm allergic to aspirin. So I was like, well, maybe aspirin will work
Yeah.
because I was trying stuff
No.
and it wasn't working. So basically, it's still in your system. So it affects how other medications are absorbed into your body.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was blown away. And I think that that was the most difficult part for me.
Yeah.
But because I went in thinking like like the fertility clinic that I was going to, that they were giving me all the information I needed. So I didn't think that I needed to do a bunch of research. I'm thinking that I know the information, but I literally was like walking blind through it. And there's so much more that I feel like I need to share so that anybody else that's trying to do it doesn't have to walk blind,
Yeah.
especially the money, because I had insurance that covers $10,000
Mhm.
for any fertility, whatever process, and I still was coming out of pocket
Yeah.
thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars. Like financially, it was a huge burden to where I got to the point where I was like, God, you trying to let me know like I don't need to do this? Because like just say that, because I'll wait if you say wait. But I went ahead and did it. This amazing nurse kind of came at the moment where I was like done. And she was just amazing. Like I'd never seen her, never spoken with her, never got an email from her. She just came out of nowhere. And she walked me through it. She even gave me, because I was dealing with the insurance and trying to figure it out. Like y'all was talking about $17,500 for the medication. And I'm like coming out of pocket every time I go to the doctor too. Like, do I have an extra like this much money laid
That's
around?
a
And
lot. Yeah. A lot of women don't have that much money.
no, and that's why you need to know. But there are programs that you
Mhm.
can like sign up for, and they'll give you either money towards it, or they'll give you like coupon things or whatever, which is like 25% off, stuff like that. And
Okay.
I wasn't able to do it, but I think that like maybe if you would have told me about this like a little bit earlier, then I could have had everything in place
Yeah.
that I need to see if I could qualify for it. So
Yeah.
I don't know, it's tough, but while I will not do what my doctor said, which was go through another cycle like right away, I'm not
Mhm.
doing it anymore.
Mhm.
I absolutely encourage it. And I actually think that, if a woman like knows that she doesn't want to have kids, in the next, like until they're 35 or something like that, like in your 20s, just do it then. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like go ahead and do it. But
I think that I want to get some of the comments. First of all, I had to leave this comment up here because Yvette Robinson said she's 57 and two of her friends had babies at 59 and 50. I will definitely share that with, I have a girlfriend that is in her early 50s and is going through that. And to hear someone had a baby at 59, wow. And let's pray for her. Miss Yvette, send prayers to your friends because I cannot imagine to have a newborn at 59. I mean, I think everybody is different and that's beautiful. She said her eggs were very healthy. She had a little boy and she was able to carry it on her own. Amazing. That is absolutely amazing. It's all a blur since I have stage 4 endometriosis. It would be nice to know helpful resources, insurance programs. Hopefully you guys can go to, you see Natasha's Instagram. Go to her Instagram page. I'm sure she's going to be, sharing more information as well. And if there's something that you can send me, Natasha, I'll put it in the intro for this conversation so people can have it.
the YouTube video.
Okay, I'll put that in there.
Yeah.
I'll put that in there so you guys can see that. So Tanikia Walker says she wants other women to know that Tony has ghosted her as well. He is in therapy, but still ghosting. He ghosted me. I'm tired of listening to his lies. It's a lot happened in the chat. Um, but at the end of the day, I think that I love the fact that you said you still believe in loving, you're still waiting for your person. You're not trying to do this for yourself. I know that there's some women that do have children on their own, but I strongly believe that children need two parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that God will honor the desire of your heart. Sometimes it doesn't come when we want, But it comes right on time. I mean, I kept looking at I like, Lord, where is he? I'm gonna be too old to enjoy him when you send him. You know how they say women get to a sexual peak at a certain age. I was like, Lord, he's gonna come so late. I'm gonna be past the peak and he's gonna enjoy me. Like, what is happening, Lord? But he came at the right time. It was not the right time for me because I was thinking, like, why would you let me be single for so long? But I can tell you, Natasha, and I say this to people, I'm like, the man that God sent me is so amazing. I don't regret waiting as long as I did.
And that's what gets me through, because I said, like, the guy for me is going to come along and it's all going to make sense.
All going to make sense.
Single thing that made me sad or made me want to give up, I was like, it's going to make sense. And I am willing to wait on him. Like, I'm just willing to wait. So I love hearing that, because that's that little fuel when the tank getting kind of low. And I'm just like, well, I mean, him over there, he ain't that bad. Then it's like, I'll go think about that.
Yeah. And you know what? It's so funny because I asked, and I have a video on here for you guys with my husband, but I remember thinking, like, all the guys that I went out with that I thought about potentially settling for. And I'm not saying that there was anything wrong with them. Just for me, there was some that I wasn't necessarily physically attracted to, some that I didn't have like that good personality chemistry, some that might not have been, what I wanted as far as my personal, looks and things like that. And every time I tried to just force myself to be with someone that I wasn't 100% into, I just didn't feel right. And then when I met my husband, I was like, man, if I had settled, I would have missed out on something so amazing. I am so glad that I kept pushing myself not to do that. And so I can say to any woman, you deserve an amazing love. If you are with someone and trying to make yourself, I'm not saying that we should be looking for perfection because we're not perfect, right? But just like we would never tell a man to settle for something that he doesn't want, when it comes to looks, when it comes to, how she treats him, absolutely not. You deserve what is going to be best for you, and God will not, he will honor his word. We just have to be patient, and keep doing what you need to do. Rhonda says, I'm almost 47. I'm over it. Rhonda, first of all, God is not concerned about that big age because he was not concerned about mine. I got married right before I turned 45. And again, guys, as much as I was like, I'm just going to keep interviewing people about love and not have love, I'm so thankful that I waited. I'm so thankful. And I'm not saying that this Negro is perfect because he's not perfect, but he was perfect for me.
I was going to say he's right for you. And that's what matters.
So just like, how did he find me? Because I didn't think anyone like him existed. So
how did he tell me? I have to know that.
So it was funny because right before COVID, I had stopped dating. I'm like you, I would take breaks. I was like, I'm over this. Guys get on my nerves. I'll just focus on what I'm doing. And this guy had kind of asked me out on a date, and I didn't want to go out with him. And I decided I wasn't dealing with anybody I wasn't into, so I didn't want to go. But I got an invite. He invited me to be a part of a Facebook group that was for singles. And I joined the group, and I wasn't serious about it. I was kind of concerned about what was going on because I was hearing that we were going to be shut down, and I was hearing that my business could be affected. I'm a publicist and we do things with clients outside. So I was nervous. So I was like, let me do something to get my mind off of it. So I got into that group and I introduced myself in the group, just playing around, and 4 guys messaged me. And out of those 4 guys, I said, I'm sitting on my couch. I'm going to talk to all 4. So I had 4 windows open on my computer. I'm just shooting the shit back and forth with them. Adrian said, let's FaceTime. I don't like to FaceTime, Natasha, because when you FaceTime, you have to be all, I do this for a living. So I try to be all enchanted when I FaceTime. So I was like, and he was like, I just want to talk to you. So I went ahead and did it. And we talked for probably like almost 3 hours. And that, we went out 2 weeks later on our first date, and that was it. What I can say about him is I have never met someone that did everything he told me he was going to do. I have never encountered that. Chili and I we're very good. That's like one of my best friends. And we would talk about guys. You meet a guy and it take him about 3 or 4 weeks before he's on some BS, or he's told you he's going to do something and not. It's very hard for people to be consistent and to show up when they say they're going to show up. I've
Yeah.
never ever met a man that had, every time he told me he was going to do something, he did that and more every single time. And that's how I knew, and then he told me he was going to marry me. I was like, yeah, I've heard that before, which I had, but he did every single thing. He never, his word. And that made me respect him, because I feel like so many men, you meet men, but you have to have a man that you respect. If
Yeah.
you're a career woman and you're very, doing what you're doing, you need a man that you can rely on and that you can respect and you can trust to lead. And because he did everything he told me he was going to do, I trusted him. He also told me his flaws up front. He was like, look, this is who I am. And I was like, whoa, these are my weaknesses. These are my issues. This is this. And that's exactly, he told me the truth every time. And I wasn't used to it. He,
Right.
he is a unicorn, Alex, but every single one of us, you only need one. You only need one. So yeah, there are a whole bunch of guys that are not the right ones, but Natasha, you only need one. So
And that's why I won't give up.
no, that one is out there. He's out there.
Same best friend that told me about Ready to Love and was like, I really think that's what I thought was going to be like my love story. Because I'm like, my best friend told me I could find my man on the show, and now I'm going to go find him. But she, like a long time ago, she's been married for like 10 years, but she, maybe 11 now. She was like, I think you're stuck like in a fairy tale, which I respect what she said. So it's not, I'm saying it from the way that like I received it, but someone who's married, like y'all like understand differently like what marriage is about. So I do think that I'm a little bit in, a fairy tale land or whatever. And she just kind of, you have to be strategic about like the type of person that you want. It's more like a business. And I was like, well, I still believe in like that fairy tale love. So like, let me believe in that. And then when I, that kind of
every single one of my friends, my guy friends would say, Crystal, you love like a little kid, and you believe in a fairy tale. Now I will say this. What I didn't tell you is that there were some issues with me, right? So that I did not know. So I was single for a long time, and most of it was because of myself. I wanted this love that was amazing, but yet I was doing things that were keeping me from that, right? So I went on Iyanla and I was like, these men are crazy. They're intimidated, da, 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 da. Well, that part wasn't true. So I had to stop the way, hey, Sabrina. Hey, beautiful. I had to change some things about Crystal that I was doing wrong. And that's why I believe in accountability, because I feel like a lot of times, the issue that's keeping us single is ourselves, right? It's either, I will also say this, I became celibate. And I know that's not for everybody, but I was just like, I'm tired of sharing my body with people that don't deserve it. I'm over it. Like, I just got to the point where I was like, I'm sick of this. And I asked my daughter, I have a daughter that's, in her mid-20s, and I would say, Chanel, if you would not give this guy $5,000, she'd be like, I wouldn't give $5,000. I said, well, why would you give him your body? Right? Because your body is worth so much more than that. And I know we're in a position where people feel like, oh, I'm empowered. I'm going to sleep with who I want to. But guess what, sis? That keeps you from your man. Because there's so much that happens to us when we're intimate with people. It changes the way we see ourselves. Because if you're laying down with people that don't deserve to be with you, first of all, they're holding up a spot for that amazing right man. And they don't deserve it. Like, he deserves something that's different. So I personally decided, I had a bad relationship, and I was like, I knew better. I knew he wasn't what I wanted. And I was like, I must not think a lot of myself if I'm allowing these men that I know are not the one to have a piece of something that I'm saying is special, but I'm not acting like it's special. So at that point, for me, things changed. And I'm not saying that everybody should do that. But for me, I had to get to the point where I held Crystal at such high regard that it would be crazy for me to let you have access to me if you're not that man, because that man that I know God is sending for me deserves something so much better. Like, I don't want him to have something that everybody else done ran through. So I decided to take myself off the market in that regard. And that helped me, not even so much for him, because, we're grown. We've all been there, done that. But it made me look at myself different, right? And it made me just made me require different of a man. So when I met him, he told me his stuff, and I told him, I am not going to be just laying around with you. I'm not living with anybody that's not my husband. I'm not doing this, or this. And guess what? Most guys will be like, okay, fine. He was like, well, okay, all right, I hear you. And because I respected myself, he respected me. And I mean, we started dating in February, and a year later on Valentine's, he proposed. But I think that was specifically because I started treating myself differently than I had before in relationships. You know, I would get with somebody and be like, well, he's kind of cute. I kind of feel like, and then next thing you know, I'm like, oh man, I wasted some more good stuff. No more.
I definitely think that that is absolutely subjective, because I've never put like a title of celibacy on it, but I have gone like a year plus at a time without being, intimate or having that type of relationship with someone, just because I ain't like nobody. It took a lot for me to like somebody. But I also know women that do stuff and then they lie about it. It's like undercover, because it's like they're ashamed of it, obviously. And then I have friends and know women that are like in control of it, and they're not lowering their standards or beneath anything because they decided to sleep with someone and they didn't really want a real relationship for it. So I absolutely think it's subjective, because in the recent probably like 3 years, I've been hearing since I was single, which was about 11 years ago, is when I broke up with that like really long relationship, from my friends. You need to loosen up. You need to, just like loosen up. But I was very much like the old school, like relationship, and then before this or whatever. But if a guy wants to play, you can say all of those things to them, and they'll say like, oh, I'm fine with that. And then when they get tired of putting their best foot forward or sending their representative, they'll still play you. So it really is a mixture of doing what's best for you, being true to what really is best for you, respecting yourself, and understanding that if you just, check off the boxes of what is respectable or required for one person to lay that out or set that foundation, is not going to be the exact same thing for you. But you have to be authentic and be true and real in that, and truly do whatever it is that you need to do to have that self-esteem and that self-confidence for yourself, regardless of a man. But like, you have to understand that like discernment, all of that stuff plays a part in there. Listen to the people around you that are giving you hints, like, you think this guy is this, and they're telling you like, I don't know, like all of those
a lot of times, it's we trick ourselves. I just think we teach people how to treat us. And I think for me, I think, it sounds great to say I can do this, and this, but a lot of times as women, I think we don't really believe that we deserve what we say. And it's funny because
hold on, Krista, because I absolutely believe and know what
I didn't mean that towards you. I'm just talking
with this Tony situation, like, because that's what is the root of all of this. Tony never treated me bad, but that doesn't mean that he is good, because I'm never going to sit up here and ignore what I've seen around me and say, well, he didn't treat me like that. Well, he ain't never, he wasn't that toxic Tony with me. But you can teach someone how to treat you, and then they can still be a bad person. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a whole big picture of things, and it's not on the person to say like, oh, well, they treated me bad, so it's because I didn't treat them. Like, I'm very respectful to myself. I've been amazing. I've not been in any like terrible situations where guys have been disrespectful to me, treated me like an object, things like that. That's not my track record.
But I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the person, it's more about like what I give you access to, right? And I'm not saying that you deserve it, that anybody's actions deserve something else. I'm saying, and I wasn't even speaking about you and Tony, but I think I'll use myself as an example, because I can't get mad at myself. I can put out my own stuff that I did that I'm not happy about without anyone getting mad at me. But like with my husband now, I said, I'm not going to live with a man. That has nothing to do with sex. I'm not going to live with somebody and acting like a wife when I'm not a wife. I'm not doing that, right? I'm not going to do this, or this. And I think for us, we have to decide what we're willing. What does it look like for you? What it's not about the man, because a man could be a great man. He just may not be the great man for you. And also men do treat women differently based on how they see them. But so some men I met that I dated probably didn't see me as their wife. So I needed to excuse myself stage left. Not everybody saw me as a wife. Not everybody sees you as a wife. Some men do, some men don't. But you have to know this is what I expect. So if you don't see me this way, you don't have access to me. Now, whatever that access is to you is different. Maybe we all have different ideas of what works, but I think you have to have a clear understanding. This is the only way I accept treatment. And if you don't meet me here, then you don't have access to me. And it's not even about how, because it's not about them. It's more about this is what I expect.
Right.
And I remember thinking, man, I don't know. It's funny. Men will rise to the occasion when it's something that they want. They just do. And that's how you know if he's the right one. And if you're, I was single a long time, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't out there. You just have to be strong enough to know that there is someone for everybody, and what you speak becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So keep saying what you're doing, keep believing in love, because I know that it's coming for you, and believe that whatever Natasha decides are her boundaries, just stick to those boundaries, because men respect that. When we say one thing, a lot of women do all this talking, I know I got this, I respect myself, and then their actions don't align with that. And then men are like, okay, so then they don't they automatically just check you off. So it's really like whatever you say, just like with my husband, I said I respect he kept his word. When we keep our word, but see, we'll say, and I've done it, I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z. And then well, he's cute and I like him and I want him to like me and I don't want him to. So I do something that may not necessarily be what I want to do or what I would have normally done. Then that man no longer respects me because I haven't shown him that he should. So I think it's just about figuring out what your personal boundaries are and sticking to them, and knowing that the right man will rise to the occasion and giving him some challenge, like give him some challenge to work on. You got a lot going on. It's got to be a great man. So he's got to have the fortitude to be able to win you over,
No, I agree with 100% of what you were saying. It's just that, like, the same scenario as earlier, where it's like, as a human, I want to speak just directly to my situation.
Right.
However, I just think that it's important for me to be that advocate that I am and be the voice for all women. And I have friends that hooked up with a guy early on, same night, next night, whatever, and they're still married to that guy. So I think that as women, I know I put a lot of it on myself, but I think society puts a lot of pressure on women. So I just feel the need to speak up for the woman that has been in that situation, maybe didn't set those boundaries, whatever. And because the guy will literally do whatever he wants to do.
Whatever he wants to do.
And he gonna do it. So sometimes you can lay all of those boundaries, and he might be in for the long haul. Maybe he want to get whatever it is that he's trying to get, and he real passionate about it. So he might go that whole long haul just to turn out to be an F-boy, So it's like it's only so much that you can do, and then the other person has to meet you halfway with those same like expectations, those same characteristics. And that's why discernment is important too, because at some points you might think like, oh, like, he's answering the questions all the same way as your now husband did, but then you're starting to see that, wait, now he's not doing all the things that he was doing before, and it's not giving
he was consistent with actions, not words.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. But if that stopped at some point, you can't just be committed to what it was, because I mean, like I said, I have friends that moves quickly and they're still happily married now. So
it's not about sex. It's not about sex. It's really about showing up as who you are. So like I said, it doesn't have you could say, I am okay with it's not about the actual sex. For me, that's what I had to do, because I wanted to make sure that no man had access to me until I felt a certain sense of safety in the relationship. So that worked for me, but that doesn't have to be what everybody else does. But what does have a problem is when women pretend to be one thing and you're not. That never works. Just like with men. And I know you're right, men can talk, but one thing you can't fake is consistency. Nobody can fake consistency. They can talk, but if the words and actions don't align, then the words don't matter. So I'm
Yeah.
just saying that to all women. Like, you guys know, words are great. There are a lot of guys that know how to, especially if they've been around women or they're good listeners, they know how to say all the right things. I could give a damn about what you're saying if your actions aren't aligning consistently with
Yeah.
your words. That's the key. Consistency cannot be faked over a period of time,
It
because
has to be
you
both.
just, yeah, it separates the men from the boys and the right ones from the ones that are doing it. But I'm not talking about, I don't care. Grown people should do what grown people want to do. But I
Right.
feel like a lot of women do things they don't really want to do. They just do it because they feel like a man wants it. So for me, I decided I'm not having sex unless I want to. And
Right.
I don't want to give anyone access to my body that doesn't see me as a wife.
Right.
That's what I wanted. So I have a right to do what I want. Everyone has a right to do what they want with their body. But I did not want to
Facts.
wake up in the morning with somebody next to me that doesn't see me as a wife. So why are you here?
True. True. And other boundaries too. And again, I would just,
Yes.
backing off that same example, but it's all I'm saying is that you can do all of these things for the right person and for the wrong person. And like earlier, I think you said that like there's somebody out there for everybody, but
Mhm.
there's like a million
Wrong
not
person.
somebody. So, yeah. So it's like, you can do all of these things. It's not like a manual. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like you can do all of this and it can be all right, but then you still don't feel like this is that guy. Like it's gonna feel right.
Yeah.
You're gonna lay out your boundaries, whatever they are. Like I'm really big about, people not coming to my place too, because it's
Yeah.
really hard to get that bad energy out. Like
Mhm.
it's not like guys I've dated, they think that that's weird, but I don't care because I don't like, that bad energy in my place. Like that's my thing. But
Mhm.
whatever your thing is,
Yes.
it's your thing. Just be confident in it and
Yep.
be, sure enough in yourself to know that this is what you want, and whatever your reason is, whatever it is. And then
Yeah.
also understand that there's only so far you can do it, because you have to have that right guy on the other end too, like for
Yeah.
it to truly work. Like it's
But
not
I guarantee you,
all on us.
the more you listen to your intuition, the fewer frogs we kiss.
Oh no, facts. That's girl.
That part, the more we tune in to ourselves and get into us, like that's the thing. The key is already there. So you're right. There are a gazillion wrong guys, but the more Crystal's in tune with herself, the less lesson she has to learn. The more Natasha's in tune with herself, the less frogs. And I get to a point where I'm like, Lord, I'm not kissing no more frogs. My lips don't like it. I'm just gonna wait. And it,
Yeah,
it will come. It will come because they are out there. You just have to, be in a space where you're really in tune with your star player. And you got it. You know what's right and what's wrong for you. We
yeah,
just have
true.
to be patient and trust that God has something amazing for us. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for sharing your story about freezing your eggs. I can't wait to have you back and you could tell us about falling in love and your story after that, because I know it's going to happen for you. Just keep speaking positivity, Natasha.
Mhm.
Don't let anybody that's around you speak anything different. And if they do this, need to put the blockers on.
Mhm.
What you have is what you believe is right. I literally was like, I will keep saying positivity until positivity happens.
That's right.
It does not have a choice. So you do the same thing. You have a beautiful spirit.
Thank
You have the type of energy that a good man, not somebody that's on some BS or somebody that's trying to be a player, but a good man will appreciate that, because you can tell that you truly desire to be a helpmate and to be a spouse. Like you could feel that you have a sweetness to you that a lot of women don't have or have lost touch with, right? A lot of us have gotten so hurt and bitter that we've lost touch with that sweet, feminine side, and you still have that. And it's apparent and it's a beautiful thing. So I wish you so much success. I'm glad that you are not
you.
allowing anything you've been through to make you bitter or jaded. And I know God is going to reward that.
Thank you so, so much. And I will say I had a conversation with one of my friends last night, and we were talking about relationship stuff. And I was like,
Mhm.
are we living the same life? Like it was literally like the same. And at the end of us, sharing that, she was like, all right, this is the last time we're going to talk about, bad situations with
Mhm.
regards to dating. Like all the situations moving forward are going to be all positive. And I just loved that so much.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we started talking about even like maybe looking into like matchmaking and things like that, just other alternatives so that we don't have to keep with the frogs,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
even if you get some, I'm sick of looking at frogs too and listening to the frogs. I'm sick of it.
Start looking for those. You know what? I started writing. That's actually how I started doing Ready to Love interviews. I
Mhm.
started writing. A friend of mine that was in a relationship, she said, Crystal, because I was single forever.
Mhm.
But I believed in love. I've always been that.
Mhm.
I'm just that, gullible, have that little girl in me that wants to believe. And so she said, if you really believe that, stop talking and saying anything negative and put your money where your mouth is. And so I started writing. I write for Rolling Out, and I do these conversations for Rolling Out. And then later I have a YouTube channel. But it started with me just writing articles about beautiful examples of Black love. So
Mhm.
whenever I would see something beautiful that I would focus on that, because God knows there's enough negativity out there. Like people are getting divorced every day. Celebrities are talking about that. So I would just focus on beautiful examples of Black love to write about. And, Ready to Love did not always provide that, but I always spin those situations to positivity. That's what I do here, but that's why it started. And I was doing all that. Do you know how lonely it was to be writing about love and be single for all those years? But I feel like it was God preparing me. And it also, was me helping other people, and that blessing that caused me to, it later came back to myself. But I wrote before I was even doing YouTube. I would just write articles about Black love that was beautiful, people coming together and working together. It was a guy that was homeless, and his one of my girlfriends, she had a store, and this guy would just always be around, and he just would help her with different things. Turned out he wasn't homeless, he was just in a depressed state, and he started helping her just every day. He would just come by the shop for almost a year, and she was like, he just won't go away. He just keeps helping me. That ended up being her husband. They've been married for 6 years. I was in their wedding. Like, it's so many beautiful stories if you just tune out the bad and
Yes.
focus on the good and look for them. Look for them. I'm always going to highlight anything positive. So, Natasha, you come back and you share.
Okay.
One of my girlfriends was on Ready to Love the first season, Shatava. She was in
Okay.
a love triangle with Shay and Mike, who I'm also friends with.
Mhm.
Shatava got married. She was on Say Yes to the Dress. And we hang out with her and her husband all the time. Like, there
Oh.
is love after Ready to Love. Just because you weren't ready for that person doesn't mean you're not ready at all. So there's so many beautiful examples of love if you're looking for them. Now, if you're looking for some BS, you can find that all day.
Yeah, because that's what, people want to see. And sometimes I do too, because I want the mindless whatever to take a
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
But I just want to recognize the beauty in what you said, because even with you yearning for and desiring your own love story, you were still able to be happy for other people and to search out those true love stories. And your words have value. And people always say, like, oh, sticks and stones, but words, whatever.
No,
No,
they
words
hurt.
have value, and your
Yeah.
own words that you speak have the most value. So
Mhm.
the fact that you were still, looking for, weeding through all the BS and
Mhm.
looking for those success stories kept you laser focused
Yeah.
on finding that for yourself. And
And I
that
think God
really
rewarded
what
that.
I'm doing.
So Love Rika asked, I wonder if Shay got married. Shay has not got married yet, but I have hooked her up on several dates, and I have told her that she needs to get it together. No,
Oh,
she's dating. She's doing good, but she's dating, but she's not married yet. Shatava was a class act. When I tell you Shatava has a fun, I told you, like literally one of my girlfriends that went on Fix My Life with me, I feel like God just opened up fine nigga heaven and poured out blessings on all of us. Shatava has a beautifully successful, fine ass husband, and that loves her to death. When I tell you he has got her back, but she waited. She waited, and she waited for the right one. And forget, Mike. Mike was fine. All the women, every freaking woman that comes on here thinks about Mike. Mike didn't see Shatava like that, but guess what? Shatava got the man of her dreams that treats her like a whole queen. I mean, they're actually on their anniversary, their first wedding anniversary was this weekend. So they went to I'm telling all their business, but she's my
Yeah,
first.
so happy anniversary to them. That's beautiful.
Happy anniversary to Shatava and David. They are celebrating and they will actually be back tomorrow, but they're doing so great. So there is love out there. We just have to look for the stories, and I love being able to share those stories with you guys here. Song of Solomon is my favorite book. You guys know Chili, my girlfriend, who wrote the forward for my book. She's in a beautiful relationship. Like, love is out there. You just gotta look for it.
And even
Yeah.
if I didn't have those examples, I feel it in my heart. So I'm just not going to, you know, I'm not going to be that girl. Oh, these like,
No, it's coming. I'm
yeah,
sending the good energy, and Natasha's gonna come back
thank
and
you.
share and
Appreciate
share.
it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tonight. I've enjoyed. We've had, over
Yeah.
400 and some people in the comments. Thank you guys for being down for positivity. I'm always so blown away that I have a strong group, a strong tribe that actually, supports this channel, even though we don't do the messy stuff. Now we'll have good conversation, but we're not ever going to be messy because you can't put out negative and expect positive back. At least that's how I feel for me. And
Yeah.
I'd be only concerned with me. So make sure you guys like this, share it, follow Natasha so you can hear more about her journey. And Natasha's
It's actually on my YouTube page. I wanted to add that IVF video. So if any one of y'all,
I'm gonna add it to the chat on here. I'm gonna put the YouTube link in there so they can see it. So
okay.
all right, well, we have been on here for almost 2 hours on a Tuesday, going up on a Tuesday. I appreciate you, Natasha. Like I said, please come back, and thank you for sharing the clarity on the other situation, and most importantly, just this conversation on hope for love. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Have a good night. Bye-bye. All right, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out. What a great conversation. I told you it was going to be a little bit more, add a little bit of depth to the Ready to Love conversation. It's more than just being on a dating show and pulling up, just best for the internet. People really, there are some people that really truly want to find love. And for those people out there, real recognizes real. So I believe that Natasha will find what is for her. I don't believe that was Tony, but I think she'll be much better off, and we'll keep up with her and find out. So you guys stay tuned. Coming up this week, we have more Ready to Love conversations. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed so you'll get a notification. I love you all for watching. If you haven't liked this conversation, I don't know what's going on with you. Make sure that you like it before you leave. And I'll see you guys later this week. Bye-bye.